Brady Callis. I'm a certified fly casting instructor with Fly Fishers International, and today we're going to be talking a little bit about some of the basic fundamentals of casting a fly rod. Alrighty, so I would say the real difference that you're going to see between your fly cast and conventional cast is the way that we actually cast. With conventional tackle, typically we're casting the weight of the lure or the bait itself, whereas in fly fishing we're more so casting the weight of the line. So there's three things, at least before we start casting, that we want to think about. First is going to be the grip with our hand. Personally, I like to say go up to your rod and just do a handshake with your hand, with the cork there. That's going to basically give you a spot there where your hand feels comfortable. But remember, when we're holding that fly rod, we don't want to squeeze too tight. It wants to be something that's pretty comfortable in our hands. The second is our stance. Typically, we want to face with our chest facing our target. And just like a baseball stance, any other sports stance, we're going to want to bring our non-dominant foot forward. But before we get into the actual cast here, I want to talk a little about what a cast is. Essentially, our fly cast is going to be an acceleration between two stops or two pauses. So what we really like to utilize, especially in the fly casting world, is the clock system. Right here is going to be 9 o'clock, right here is going to be 12 o'clock, and then over here is going to be 3 o'clock. What we really want to think about today is going, instead of our 10 to 2 o'clock, 11 to 1 o'clock. One thing to think about with our wrist is if we're trying to maintain that 11 o'clock to 1 o'clock, 11 o'clock to 1 o'clock, and then we pop our wrist open, essentially instead of having that 11 o'clock to 1 o'clock, we're going to be 11 to 3 o'clock there. So through this whole process, we want to try to maintain a firm wrist, and when we're doing this movement, we want to think about pulling a fridge door open, pushing a fridge closed. We're pulling and then we're pushing with our thumb nice and vertical, pointed up towards the sky. The first thing that we want to make sure is out of our system is any slack. So essentially we want the straightest line possible from our rod tip to our fly. We can take a couple steps back when we're just in the grass, or we can use what's called the trigger finger. Essentially with the trigger finger, we're getting our finger that's pressed up against the cork, pinching that finger right in there and holding it firmly but not squeezing too tightly. So once we have that pinched off, we can eliminate that slack and get that straightest line possible from our rod tip to our fly. I'm going to start with my rod on the ground. We're going to pick up to the 11 o'clock position. We're going to come back to the 1 o'clock position, pause, let that line lay itself out. Then we're going to come back to that 11 o'clock position, pause, and then follow that line as it comes to the ground. Something important to think about whenever we're doing a fly cast is that we should have an equal application of force on our front cast and our back cast. If we think about it like a mirror, our front cast should be a mirror of our back cast. We're going to start by picking up to 11, coming back to 1, pause, back to 11, and then straight back down. Raising up to 11, back to 1, back to 11, and then pausing and coming back down. A good kind of general rule of thumb is when we're making a short cast, we're going to have a shorter arc and a shorter stroke. And with a longer cast, we're going to have a wider arc and a longer stroke. So a roll cast is going to be used when we don't have the opportunity to throw that nice back cast behind us. Oftentimes in a river when we have bushes or trees backed up right behind us. So the roll cast is going to be really effective when we can't make those big overhead casts. So the first part of this cast is we're going to slowly lift our rod tip up to the 10 o'clock position. So once we're at that 10 o'clock position, what we really want to make sure of is that our rod isn't too vertical. We want to tip it off to the side just a little bit. Once we've got that rod at that 10 o'clock position, we're slowly going to bring it up to about 11, and then we're going to come down to roughly 130, just like that. So one more time, slowly pick it up to 10, up to 11, and then throwing it down to about 130 for it to lay out just like that. Idaho is an amazing and beautiful place to fish, and we hope that some of the information that you learned today helps you get out on the water. Thanks so much.